Something feels off about modern life, just this constant underlying overwhelm, anxiety, just weirdness. You wake up tired, your brain feels busy before the day even starts, and then you see other people doing well and your brain treats it less like inspiration and more like a scoreboard for a game that you didn't even know you were playing. And the strange part is, this stress seems to show up when there isn't even anything wrong. There isn't some immediate threat, there isn't a crisis, yet your nervous system reacts like there is, like something's gone wrong and you just don't know what it is yet. That's the part that doesn't make sense. Started noticing this years ago when I felt exhausted and I hadn't even done anything on the day. No gym, no work, no heroics. I wasn't in conversations, I wasn't interacting, but my head was full of other people, their lives, their opinions, their progress. People I needed to keep track of for just some unknown reasons. And my brain just couldn't deal with it. Not because anything was wrong with me, but because it felt like it was just carrying too much. That's when I realized this isn't a motivation problem, it's not a mindset issue, it feels more like a capacity problem. Like some invisible limit had been crossed and I couldn't explain it yet. But it was clear this wasn't just happening inside my head. Something out there had changed. And to understand where that change came from, we need to look at a very specific moment where the world quietly shifted. So back in 2007, the legendary Steve Jobs walked onto a stage and held up a device that looked like nothing but an upgrade. And honestly, at the time, it was. You probably remember the line. We'll get Steve Jobs to do it.
An iPod, a phone, and an internet communicator. An iPod, a phone. Are you getting it?
And this sounded epic, because it was. People queued around blocks to get this thing, but no one realized what was about to come next. It was going to change the history of humanity forever. See, before smartphones, sure, we had the internet, but it lived in very specific places. On desks, at home, at work. And if you wanted to go and meet your mates, you'd make a plan. A landline call, a couple of texts on the old Nokia 3310, or maybe even MSN, which was epic. And then you'd go and meet them. Back when if someone was late, you just assumed they must be running late. And once you were out, that was it. No constant updates, no running commentary. When you were out, you were out. But you see, the iPhone and the smartphones that followed made the internet portable. And that shift alone was huge. But it still doesn't tell the full story. Because the real change wasn't the device itself. It was what happened to the social internet once it moved into your pocket. Now, social platforms already existed before smartphones. But once they moved into your pocket, they didn't just become more convenient, they evolved like a Pokemon. Facebook moved from the desktop to your pocket, Twitter never slept, Instagram turned life into a feed, and then suddenly everyone became a brand manager, myself included. For the first time, your social world wasn't just something you logged on and checked, it was something you were constantly inside of. And here's the key point most people miss. Your brain doesn't experience this as media. It experiences it as people. Opinions, status, approval, rejection, and all before you've had a cup of tea in the morning, which would fuck anyone up. And all of this social information is pouring into the same mental space that used to hold your village. And that's where the pressure starts, because something ancient in you was suddenly asked to scale without anyone checking with it first. And you don't experience that as a thought, you experience it as a feeling. Think about how this actually shows up, right? You can tell yourself that you shouldn't compare, that you're doing fine, that you should be grateful, and that's far from useless. I use it every day, but it's not always enough because the feeling comes back. Not because you're bad at mindset, but because your brain isn't responding to thoughts. It's responding to signals. Signals that say people are ahead, status is shifting, attention is being pulled away, even when none of that is actually a threat at all. But your brain doesn't give a shit about nuance. So the real question isn't why does this keep coming back? It's this: how much social information can the brain actually hold before it starts misfiring? Well, it turns out there is a limit. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar found that humans can only maintain about 150 meaningful relationships. Not followers, not usernames, real people. The kind where if you saw them on the street, you'd actually know a bit about how their life was actually going. Not just, oh god, I know your face from somewhere. Now inside that number of 150, there are layers. And this is all averages, but 5 people that you'd call in a crisis, 15 close friends, 50 regular connections, you know, people you see out and about, your mates, things like that. And then there's this hard ceiling at 150 before things start to degrade massively. And that number shows up everywhere. Ancient tribes, military units, villages, teams that actually function. And when groups push past it, they don't become more connected. They literally fragment. And that's not because people fall out. We can fall out plenty in just 150 people, but because the brain can't track, prioritize, or maintain that many social relationships at once. And that's got fuck all to do with mindset. That's biological capacity. And as you can see, social media doesn't just gently stretch that limit a little bit up to 160, 170. It launches you into billions, and your brain simply can't tell the difference between someone in your real tribe and a stranger online outperforming you. So when you see someone fitter, happier, with more money, ahead, whatever that even means, your nervous system literally reacts like this. Someone in my tribe is massively outperforming me and I'm nowhere near them. I'm going to get booted out the group, eaten by wolves, and die. Which feels a bit dramatic, but here we are. And that is what used to happen if you got kicked out of your group. I don't know if it was wolves or whatever, but it wasn't a good thing. So stress hormones fire and your threat detection just stays on. Robert Sapolsky, who was this evolutionary biologist, explains it simply. A zebra only feels stress when there's actually a lion there or whatever. Humans can feel stress from the thought of a lion or from signals that their status might be dropping. That's why you can feel lonely with thousands of connections. You can feel behind without failing. You can feel anxious when nothing's wrong. This isn't you being a little bitch. It's overload. Ancient social software running in a planet-sized environment. So if you feel like you're falling behind, it's because you're living in a world that's scaled faster than your biology. And now that you understand that number and what made us cross it so insanely, you can stop treating it as a personal failure. You don't need to disappear and move to a cabin in the woods, although that would probably be pretty epic. You don't need to quit the internet. That would be insane and impossible for most people. Although deleting Facebook was generally one of the best decisions I ever made. You need to reduce social load back toward human scale. Protect the handful of people that actually help regulate your nervous system. Be selective about whose lives you let in your head. And yes, that includes me if I start stressing you out or making you feel anxious or weird. Because your brain was built to care deeply about a few people, not to track the status of planets. So for the next week, don't ask who should I follow, ask this: who actually makes my body feel calm? That question alone will help put you back under the limit. Now if you do feel like you're falling behind, watch this video next where I go into more detail about how I fucked up my entire 20s. Peace.